Fleet Commander Zarex Voas of the Galactic Confederation stared at the small blue planet through the main viewport of his flagship, the Dominant Will. His 4 violet eyes narrowed in contempt as he flicked his scaled fingers across the holographic display. "So, these are the humans," he said, his gravelly voice filling the command deck. "Not particularly impressive, are they?" Senior Analyst Pelna Tarn stepped forward, her slender frame casting a long shadow across the polished obsidian floor. "The preliminary reports suggest we shouldn't underestimate them, Commander. They have only achieved FTL travel in the last 70 years, but they have already established colonies on 17 worlds." Zarex snorted. 17? The Phyrexians colonized 43 worlds in their first decade of space travel. "Yes, but the Phyrexians also went extinct when they overextended their resources," Pelna replied with a pointed look. "Fair point. What about their military capabilities?" Pelna swiped through several screens on her datapad. "Limited compared to ours. Their most advanced warships would barely qualify as mid-tier cruisers by our standards. But they have proven surprisingly resilient in conflicts with the Corvash raiders." "The Corvash are nothing but space pirates with delusions of grandeur," Zarex waved dismissively. "Hardly a benchmark for military prowess." "They defeated 3 Corvash dreadnoughts with a fleet half their size," Pelna added. This caught Zarex's attention. "How?" "Unorthodox tactics. Apparently they sacrificed several of their own ships to create a debris field that disabled the Corvash sensors, then launched concentrated strikes on their command vessels." Zarex drummed his clawed fingers against the armrest of his command chair. "Interesting. Wasteful. But interesting. What about their political structure?" "Fragmented. Multiple nations, alliances, and independent colonies. Their unity is situational at best. Typical of young spacefaring species," Zarex mused. "They will either unify or tear themselves apart. Neither outcome particularly concerns the Confederation." "There's one more thing, Commander," Pelna said, her tone shifting. "They have requested a diplomatic meeting." Zarex barked a laugh. "They have what?" "We haven't even made formal contact yet. Apparently they detected our scout vessels 3 months ago and have been monitoring our approach. They have transmitted a request for peaceful negotiations regarding their status in Confederation space." "How presumptuous," Zarex sneered. "Do they actually believe they are in a position to negotiate with us? We have conquered species twice their age and 10 times their military strength." Pelna shifted uncomfortably. "The diplomatic corps suggests we humor them. It would provide valuable insight into their society before we decide whether to incorporate them or simply establish a protectorate." "Fine," Zarex sighed. "Tell them we will receive their representatives. But make it clear this is a courtesy, not a recognition of their standing." "Yes, Commander." Zarex turned back to the viewport, studying the blue marble with newfound curiosity. "These humans, they are either very brave or very stupid. I'm inclined to believe the latter." 3 days later, Zarex found himself in the grand reception hall of the Dominant Will, surrounded by his senior officers and diplomatic staff. The chamber had been prepared according to standard first contact protocols, atmosphere adjusted to match Earth conditions, gravity set to a comfortable median, and translation matrices calibrated to process human languages. "They are docking now, Commander," announced Communications Officer Drixmore, his antennae twitching with excitement. As the youngest officer on the command staff, he'd never participated in a first contact scenario. "Remember your training," Zarex instructed the assembled crew. "No sudden movements. Their species evolved as predators, so they may interpret quick gestures as threatening. And for Void's sake, don't show your teeth unless absolutely necessary." The massive doors at the far end of the hall slid open with a pneumatic hiss. A small delegation of humans entered, escorted by a contingent of Confederation security drones. Zarex immediately identified what must be the leader, a female human of average height with short auburn hair and striking green eyes. She wore a crisp white uniform adorned with minimal insignia, suggesting either humility or a lack of accomplishments worth displaying. 4 other humans followed behind her, each dressed similarly but with subtle variations in their attire. "Welcome aboard the Dominant Will," Zarix announced, his translator converting his natural clicking speech into smooth English. "I am Fleet Commander Zarix Voas of the Galactic Confederation." The lead human stepped forward and offered a strange gesture, extending her right upper limb toward him. Zarix recalled his briefing on human customs and reluctantly took her hand in his, careful to keep his razor-sharp claws retracted. "Ambassador Lena Morgan of the United Earth Alliance," she replied with a smile that, despite his briefing, Zarix still found vaguely threatening. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Commander." "A mere courtesy," Zarix said, withdrawing his hand as quickly as politeness allowed. "The Confederation is always interested in learning about new species within our sphere of influence." He didn't miss the slight twitch of her left eye at the phrase "our sphere of influence," but she maintained her diplomatic composure. "Of course," she said. "We are equally interested in learning about the Confederation. Your civilization's accomplishments are quite impressive, at least from what we have been able to observe from a distance." Zarix gestured toward an arrangement of seating platforms. "Please, make yourselves comfortable. Our hospitality coordinator has prepared refreshments suitable for human consumption." As the delegation settled themselves, Zarix noted with some amusement how awkwardly they adapted to the Confederation's ergonomic design philosophy. Humans were remarkably inflexible creatures, both physically and, he suspected, mentally. Ambassador Morgan accepted a beverage from a hovering service drone, taking a cautious sip before nodding appreciatively. "It's delicious. Is this synthesized or naturally occurring?" "A blend of botanical extracts from 7 different worlds," Pelna explained. "We find that sharing culinary experiences facilitates more productive discussions." "A sentiment we share," Morgan replied. "In fact, we have brought some items from Earth as gifts for our hosts." She motioned to one of her aides, who produced a small container. Zarix accepted the offering with practiced grace, though internally he questioned the value of whatever primitive trinkets these humans deemed worthy of diplomatic exchange. Opening the container, he found several small objects: a crystalline bottle containing an amber liquid, packages of what appeared to be foodstuffs, and a small wooden box with intricate carvings. "The bottle contains a beverage we call whiskey," Morgan explained. "It's not compatible with your biology, unfortunately, but our research suggested it would make an excellent fuel additive for your personal transport vessels." Zarix blinked in surprise. They'd researched Confederation physiology and engineering to that extent. "The wooden box contains a traditional human game called poker," Morgan continued. "We thought it might interest your strategic analysts as it combines probability calculation, resource management, and psychological warfare in an entertainment format." Psychological warfare as entertainment? Perhaps these humans were more interesting than he'd initially thought. "Most generous," Zarix said, passing the gifts to his cultural liaison. "Now, shall we discuss the purpose of your visit? I understand you wish to establish diplomatic relations with the Confederation." "Indeed," Morgan replied, her tone shifting to something more formal. "The United Earth Alliance seeks to establish peaceful coexistence with the Confederation, with an eye toward potential membership in the future." Zarix couldn't help himself, he laughed. The sound emerged as a series of harsh clicks and whistles before his translator smoothed it into something humans could recognize as amusement. "Membership? Ambassador, you misunderstand the nature of the Confederation. We don't accept applications from pre-spacefaring civilizations." Morgan's expression didn't change, but her voice cooled noticeably. "We have been traversing the void between stars for 7 decades, Commander." A mere eye blink in cosmic terms, Zarix dismissed. Most species admitted to the Confederation have histories of interstellar travel spanning millennia. Yet here we are, sitting across from you barely a century after we first split the atom, Morgan countered. "Our growth rate is unprecedented in your records, isn't it?" Pelna shifted uncomfortably beside him. The human wasn't wrong. Rapid technological development isn't necessarily a positive indicator, Zarix said. Often it suggests a species prone to reckless advancement without adequate consideration of consequences. Or it suggests adaptability, innovation, and determination, Morgan replied without missing a beat. Qualities the Confederation might find valuable in an ally. Ally? Zarix couldn't keep the incredulity from his voice. Ambassador, let me be direct. Your species has three options regarding the Confederation: acceptance of protectorate status, formal vassalage with limited autonomy, or independent development within strictly defined parameters of our choosing. He expected indignation, perhaps even fear. Instead, Ambassador Morgan simply nodded thoughtfully. I see. And what metrics do you use to determine a species' readiness for more equitable arrangements? Military strength, technological sophistication, economic stability, cultural cohesion, Zarix listed. But by every meaningful measure, humanity falls short. Interesting, Morgan said, glancing at her colleagues. Perhaps we could demonstrate our capabilities in a more interactive format? Zarix frowned. Meaning? Morgan gestured to the wooden box from their gifts. A game of poker, perhaps? It might help illustrate certain human qualities that don't translate well to statistical analysis. You wish to play games? Zarix asked incredulously. I wish to communicate in a language that transcends our differences, Morgan replied. Games often reveal more about a culture than formal negotiations. Against his better judgment, Zarix found himself intrigued. Very well, Ambassador. A brief demonstration of this poker might prove educational for both parties. As her aide began setting up the game, Morgan smiled, not the threatening display of teeth from earlier, but something more subtle and enigmatic. I should warn you, Commander, humans have a saying about poker. It's not just about the cards you are dealt, but how you play the hand. Zarix settled his massive frame across from the diminutive human. The Confederation has dominated galactic politics for 12,000 years, Ambassador. I assure you we know how to play our hand. Morgan's smile didn't waver as she began dealing cards. We will see, Commander. We will see. The rules were simple enough for Zarix to grasp quickly. Combinations of cards held different values. Players bet resources based on the perceived strength of their hand, and deception was not merely allowed but essential to successful play. What surprised him was how quickly the dynamics shifted once actual gameplay began. The human ambassador transformed before his eyes, her expressions becoming unreadable, her betting patterns unpredictable. She won the first 3 rounds handily, accumulating a substantial lead in the colored chips they used to represent currency. But you are quite skilled at this game, Ambassador, Zarix admitted, studying his new cards with mounting frustration. Poker is deeply embedded in human culture, Morgan replied. It teaches valuable lessons about risk assessment, resource management, and reading opponents. And deception, Zarix added. Morgan nodded. We call it bluffing in this context. Sometimes, appearing stronger than you are, or weaker, can be more important than your actual position. A concept uncomfortably relevant to their earlier diplomatic discussion, Zarix realized. As the game continued, he began to wonder if humanity's apparent technological and military disadvantages might be the greatest bluff of all. As the poker game progressed, Zarix noticed subtle changes in the atmosphere of the reception hall. His senior officers had abandoned their formal postures, leaning forward with undisguised interest. Even Pelna, normally the picture of analytical detachment, watched Ambassador Morgan's every move with fascination. I will raise you 50, Morgan announced, sliding a stack of colored chips into the center of the table. Zarix examined his cards, what humans called a flush, and calculated the odds. By any reasonable probability, he should have the stronger hand. Yet something in Morgan's demeanor gave him pause. Your species enjoys this form of recreational deception? He asked, tapping his claws against his cards. Morgan shrugged, a gesture Zarix was beginning to recognize as distinctly human. We find it illuminating. In poker, as in diplomacy, what remains unspoken often matters more than what's declared outright. An interesting philosophy, Zarix murmured. In Confederation negotiations, directness is valued above all else. We state our terms clearly and expect the same courtesy. Even when directness puts you at a strategic disadvantage, asked one of Morgan's aides, a broad-shouldered human with dark skin who had introduced himself as Ambassador Julian Torres. Especially then, Zarix replied. Strength need not hide behind subterfuge. Morgan's lips curved upward. I call. Zarix displayed his cards with a flourish. Flush. Full house, Morgan countered, revealing her superior hand. As she collected her winnings, Zarix felt a strange mixture of irritation and respect blooming within him. You led me to believe you were bluffing. No, Morgan corrected. You assumed I was bluffing. I simply allowed you to maintain that assumption. A semantic distinction, Zarix grumbled. But an important one, Morgan replied. Assumptions are dangerous, especially when dealing with unfamiliar cultures. For instance, you have assumed humanity's military capabilities based on the ships you have observed and the records you have accessed. Zarix straightened. Are you suggesting your military strength exceeds our intelligence reports? Morgan shuffled the deck with practiced ease. I'm suggesting that, like this game, there's what you see and what remains hidden. Another hand, Commander. Before Zarix could respond, Communications Officer Drixmore approached with obvious reluctance. Forgive the interruption, Commander, but we have received an urgent transmission from Central Command. Zarix excused himself and moved to a private communication alcove at the edge of the reception hall. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern visage of Supreme Director Cole Vass. Commander, the Supreme Director began without preamble. Our long-range sensors have detected an anomaly near the human colony on Proxima Centauri B. Investigate immediately. May I ask the nature of this anomaly, Director? Unknown. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. It appeared suddenly and has been growing in intensity for the past 6 hours. Zarix frowned. I'm currently engaged in diplomatic proceedings with the human delegation. Take them with you, the director ordered. Their presence might prove useful, and it will give you an opportunity to observe their reactions. Confederation interests must be protected, Zarix. If the humans are conducting unauthorized experiments in our territory. Understood, Director. I will depart immediately. Returning to the reception hall, Zarix found the human delegation engaged in animated discussion with his officers about the finer points of poker strategy. Ambassador Morgan, he interrupted. A situation has arisen that requires my immediate attention. Your delegation is invited to accompany the dominant will to investigate an unusual phenomenon near your colony on Proxima Centauri B. Morgan exchanged glances with her team before responding. We appreciate the invitation, Commander. Of course we will join you. Excellent, Zarix said, signaling to his crew to prepare for departure. We will resume our discussions en route. As they made their way to the command deck, Zarix noted Morgan's composed demeanor. If she was concerned about a potential incident near a human colony, she concealed it masterfully. Another bluff? Or genuine confidence? May I ask what kind of anomaly we are investigating? She inquired as they entered the vast, circular command center of the dominant will. Unknown energy signatures, Zarix replied, settling into his command chair. Potentially dangerous. Potentially he fixed her with all 4 of his violet eyes. Very artificial. Morgan met his gaze without flinching. Are you suggesting human involvement, Commander? I suggest nothing. I merely investigate. Of course, Morgan said with that same enigmatic smile, as any responsible galactic power would. The journey to Proxima Centauri took less than an hour thanks to the dominant will's advanced propulsion systems. As they dropped out of FTL on the edge of the system, sensor arrays immediately detected the anomaly. Report, Zarix ordered. Science Officer Turvin Lux bent over his console, antennae twitching with confusion. Energy signature is massive, Commander. Concentrated in a spherical formation approximately 5,000 kilometers from the human settlement. It's pulsing. Visual, Zarex commanded. The main view screen shifted to show a shimmering globe of blue-white energy, rippling like the surface of a disturbed pond. Fascinating, Morgan whispered, stepping forward for a better view. You recognize this phenomenon? Zarex asked sharply. Not specifically, no, Morgan admitted. But it resembles theoretical models for quantum field manipulation. Pelna joined them, datapad in hand. The colony appears unaffected. Population readings normal, no signs of evacuation or distress. Open a channel to the colonial governor, Zarex ordered. After a brief delay, the view screen split to show a human face, an older male with silvered hair and a calm, authoritative presence. This is Governor Anton Vasquez of New Hope Colony. How can I assist the Confederation today? Governor, this is Fleet Commander Zarex Voas. We have detected an unusual energy phenomenon near your settlement. Can you provide any information? The governor's expression remained neutral. Ah, you must mean the Proxima Project. Nothing to concern yourselves with, Commander. It's standard research activities, well within the parameters of our colonial charter. Research? Zarex repeated incredulously. That energy signature could power a small sun. What exactly are you researching, Governor? Quantum field dynamics, primarily, Vasquez replied with infuriating casualness. With some applications in spatial manipulation. Ambassador Morgan can provide the technical details if you require them. All eyes turned to Morgan, who stepped forward with practiced poise. The Proxima Project is a collaborative effort between our Theoretical Physics Division and Practical Engineering Corps. We are exploring more efficient methods of energy generation and storage. And you didn't think to inform the Confederation of these experiments? Zarex demanded. Actually, Commander, Morgan said, removing a small device from her pocket and projecting a holographic document. Notification was filed with the Confederation Registry Office 3 months ago as required by interstellar protocol for non-member species conducting scientific research. Zarex stared at the document, which did indeed bear the official seal of the Registry Office, with mounting disbelief. This energy output exceeds anything we have seen from a non-Confederation world. Does it? Morgan asked, her tone one of polite interest. How fascinating. Zarex signaled for a private conference with his senior staff, moving to a sealed briefing room adjacent to the command deck. Once the doors closed behind them, he rounded on Pelna. Did you know about this? The analyst checked her records, mandibles clicking with agitation. The filing exists, Commander, but it was categorized as routine. The project description mentioned experimental energy research, but gave no indication of this magnitude. They deliberately downplayed it, Zarex concluded. It's a strategic omission. Like a poker bluff, Drixmore suggested. Zarex shot him a withering glare. This isn't a game, Officer Moore. This is Confederation security. With respect, Commander, Pelna ventured, perhaps we should reconsider our initial assessment of human capabilities. One surprising research project doesn't change the fundamental power dynamics, Zarex insisted. They are still centuries behind us technologically. Are they? Pelna challenged, displaying a series of calculations on the central holotable. These energy readings suggest a level of quantum manipulation we have only theorized. If they can harness this technology for practical applications. It changes nothing, Zarex said firmly. We still hold overwhelming military and political advantages. Commander, Science Officer Lux interrupted. I have completed a more detailed analysis of the phenomenon. It appears to be a controlled quantum field, possibly a precursor to some form of artificial wormhole technology. The briefing room fell silent. Impossible, Zarex finally said. Stable wormhole generation has eluded even our most advanced research teams. The evidence suggests otherwise, Lux insisted. The quantum signatures are consistent with space-time manipulation on a fundamental level. Zarex paced the length of the briefing room, his massive frame tense with agitation. If this is true, If humans have somehow developed this technology independently, it would represent a significant shift in the balance of power. Pelna finished for him. We need more information, Zarex decided. Return to the command deck. Say nothing of our conclusions. When they rejoined the human delegation, Zarex found Ambassador Morgan engaged in animated conversation with Governor Vasquez on the view screen, discussing something called baseball statistics with inexplicable enthusiasm. Ambassador, Zarex interrupted, I'd like a more detailed explanation of this Proxima project, specifically its intended applications. Morgan turned from the screen, her expression betraying nothing. Of course, Commander. As I mentioned, we are exploring new energy generation methods. The quantum field you are observing represents a breakthrough in harvesting zero-point energy from the quantum vacuum and its practical applications. Zarex pressed. Initially, sustainable power for our colonies, Morgan replied. Eventually, perhaps improvements to our propulsion systems. Efficient energy production has always been humanity's most pressing technological challenge. And that's all? Zarex asked, watching her closely. Morgan tilted her head slightly. What else would there be, Commander? Before Zarex could respond, the energy field on the view screen pulsed dramatically, its blue-white glow intensifying to near blinding levels. These two initiating, Governor Vasquez announced calmly, right on schedule. The field contracted suddenly, collapsing to a brilliant point of light before expanding into a swirling vortex of energy, a perfect circle of shimmering, a stable distortion in the fabric of space. By the void, Turvin Lux whispered, They have done it. A stable artificial wormhole. As they watched in stunned silence, a vessel emerged from the vortex, sleek, gleaming, and unmistakably human in design. It was followed by another, then another, until a fleet of 20 ships had traversed the wormhole, assembling in perfect formation near the Proxima colony. Commander Zarex, Governor Vasquez said, his tone still conversational, may I introduce the 7th Expeditionary Fleet, returning from their mission to the Andromeda Galaxy. They have established our newest colony, New Horizon, some 2.5 million light-years from Earth. Zarex struggled to process this information. Andromeda? That's impossible. The journey would take centuries even with our most advanced FTL drives. With traditional FTL, yes, Morgan agreed. But as you can see, we have been exploring alternatives. Zarex turned to face her directly. You have been deceiving us. All this talk of seeking Confederation protection, of being a young, developing species. Not deceiving, Morgan corrected gently. Playing our cards close to our chest, as we say in poker. We revealed exactly what the situation called for, no more and no less. This changes everything, Zarex said, his voice low with barely contained fury. The Supreme Director will view this as a direct challenge to Confederation authority, or, Morgan suggested, as an opportunity for a more equal partnership. We didn't reveal this technology to threaten you, Commander. We revealed it because we believe it's time for the Confederation to see us as we truly are, not as a primitive species to be conquered or controlled, but as peers with unique contributions to offer. Zarex stared at the human fleet, at the stable wormhole that represented technology his civilization had pursued without success for millennia, and finally at Ambassador Morgan's calm, confident expression. You planned this all along, he realized. The diplomatic request, the poker game. It was all leading to this moment. We believed a practical demonstration would be more convincing than any verbal assurances of our capabilities, Morgan admitted. Humans have learned through bitter experience that true respect can only be earned from a position of strength. And now? Zarex asked. What do you expect from the Confederation? Seat at the table, Morgan replied simply. Recognition of human territory and sovereignty, fair trade agreements, cultural and scientific exchange. The same consideration you'd give any spacefaring civilization of comparable development. Zarex looked to Pelna, who nodded almost imperceptibly. The political calculus had shifted dramatically in the last few minutes. I will need to consult with Central Command, Zarek said finally. This situation exceeds my diplomatic authority. Of course, Morgan agreed. In the meantime, perhaps another round of poker? I find it helps pass the time during negotiations. Zarek couldn't help himself, he laughed, the sound echoing across the command deck. You humans are either the most audacious species we have ever encountered or the most foolhardy. A bit of both, Commander, Morgan admitted with a genuine smile. It served us well so far. 3 days later, Zarek stood beside Ambassador Morgan in the grand reception hall of the dominant will, now crowded with representatives from both civilizations. Supreme Director Cole Vass himself had arrived via emergency FTL transport, along with a delegation of Confederation diplomats, scientists, and military advisors. Never in 12,000 years, the Supreme Director muttered to Zarek as they watched humans and Confederation species mingling cautiously, "Have we been so completely?" How did Ambassador Morgan put it? Bluffed, Zarek supplied, though she would likely characterize it as strategic information management. Indeed, the director said dryly. The ruling council is not pleased, Zarek. They feel we have been made to look foolish. With respect, Director, we made ourselves look foolish by underestimating them based on incomplete information. It's a mistake we won't repeat, the director assured him. These humans bear watching. Their technological development curve is unprecedented, and their methods unorthodox, Zarek added, watching as Ambassador Torres taught a group of fascinated Confederation scientists the finer points of poker. They approach problems from angles we wouldn't consider. A potential asset, properly managed, the director mused, or a significant threat if mishandled. Across the room, Ambassador Morgan caught Zarek's eye and raised her glass in a subtle salute. Zarek returned the gesture, newfound respect mingling with caution. The humans had played their hand masterfully, revealing their true strength at precisely the right moment. The Confederation had no choice now but to acknowledge humanity as a genuine galactic power, young and unpredictable certainly, but undeniably innovative and resourceful. As he moved to join the diplomatic discussions now beginning in earnest, Zarek reflected that perhaps the humans had taught the Confederation a valuable lesson, one that had nothing to do with wormhole technology or military strength. Sometimes the most powerful card in your hand is the one your opponent doesn't know you are holding.